Are you new to investing? Wondering whether or not you can self-manage your properties? Let us tell you about our partner, RentRedi. RentRedi is an awesome property management software that can help you grow and handle every aspect of your real estate investing business. Rent collection, tenant screening, maintenance, lease signing, listing. Honestly, RentRedi has everything.
One of the best features is their new tenant software, Latchel, where you're able to remove yourself as the landlord from being the middleman between tenants and maintenance calls. And it's also essentially a fraction of the cost of what you would pay for property management.
Let me also mention that RentRedi is unlimited. All their plans are flat price. This means you can keep adding properties to your portfolio without having to pay more. You can close on all the properties you want, and RentRedi's price stays the same. Best part about it is for you guys is they've given us an amazing deal to pass on to all Weekly Juice listeners. You can get 50% off any RentRedi plan at rentredi.com when you use our code JuicePod. That's rentredi.com, RentrediI.com with code JuicePod, JUICEPOD, and you'll get 50% off any plan. If this is your first time here, welcome. During our shows, we interview successful entrepreneurs and investors to spread knowledge, advice, and actionable tactics to help others in the pursuit of financial freedom. We discuss successes, failures, systems, motivations, experiences, and key lessons learned along the way in the hopes that these stories help you along your journey. Tune in every Wednesday to get your weekly juice. If you've been here before and like what you've been hearing, please subscribe, share with friends, rate and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. That goes an extremely long way for us. It's simple. Just click on your podcast app, type in our podcast name, The Weekly Juice, click on the reviews, and let us know what you think. The more ratings we get, the more eyes we'll get on our show, and in turn, we'll be able to provide you all with high-quality guests. You can also find us on Instagram at Weekly Juice Pod for daily content and personal finance tips to assist in your journey towards financial freedom. Welcome back to the Weekly Juice, where we talk real estate, personal finance, and entrepreneurship. Ryan and Corey here, your boys, back with another episode. Today we got on special guest Cam Lamb. He is a financial independence, retire early movement enthusiast, aspiring PGA Tour golfer, real estate investor. He's also dipped into e-commerce, and he's built a $2 million portfolio.
Net worth, actually.
Net worth?
Yeah.
Wow.
In 2.5 years.
It's insane.
Yeah, wow. It's crazy. Airbnb, short-term rentals, Airbnb, like the way he partners with people to like purchase properties, and then he splits the cash flow. He also, some of his properties that he invested in out in Arizona, they cash flow like $2,000 a month.
Yeah, I really like his story, and I think people will take to this, the story of how he climbed up his units, right? He used his resources around him. He started with his parents, then went with his brother, and then even went on Bigger Pockets Network, found two people to invest with him. And then it rapidly scaled in 2.5, 3 years, just about.
He said he started in 2018.
He has amassed, $2.5 million in net worth, but has a 30 unit portfolio that cash flows just about $240,000 a year.
$240,000 a year passively. And he still actively works. How he does this, we'll talk about in the episode. I mean, if you're not already hooked, I don't know what to tell you, but we'll talk. He does not only short-term rentals, but he does rents by the room. So he's able to get so much more income by renting by the room, by buying near college towns. We had some DMs about college towns, college investing this week. And I was like, great business model if you know how to do it. Turns out Cam's doing it. Like,
coolest thing is he's doing all of this to spend time with his family, but also pursue his dreams of going on the PGA Tour. Like, so cool. That is what is like the cool nugget of this episode. Like, this guy's a dreamer, but he takes action every day.
Yeah. And that's like this is why we started the podcast. Like, we want to do what we want to do every single day. And this guy's kind of like doing exactly.
He is doing it. Yeah. So, well, without further ado, let's bring in Cam and get ready for a great episode. All right, Cam, officially welcome to the Weekly Juice podcast. Corey and I are thrilled to have you on. We have been following you for quite a while now and know you have a unique story that we'd like to share with our listeners. So if you could, for those who don't know you, just give a little background on yourself, who you are, where you're from, and then how you got into, or what sparked you to jump into the real estate investing world.
Yeah, sweet. Thanks for having me on the show, guys. My name's Cameron Lamb, go by Cam for short, Cam Lamb, so it's easy to remember. I'm from Los Angeles originally, spent the last 5 years out in Arizona. Actually, we just moved, me and my wife and our 11-month-old, to Utah. Real estate background, well, I guess background in general, was doing sort of the corporate grind, still am doing the corporate grind that everyone does just out of college. started a big corporation, still with them the last 5-6 years. And then real estate sort of just kind of like happened upon me, right? Like in Arizona, back when I bought, and like, I feel bad sort of like telling these stories just because like prices are so different back then now than they are now. But, the first home I bought was $300,000, and I'm kind of a cheap guy. And I was like, man, how can I make this cheaper for myself? So I just decided to house hack it. So I got 3 buddies and basically covered the mortgage. And that's sort of how it all started. Ended up getting married a couple of years later. And I tried to convince my wife to house hack with me in the master bedroom and have the roommates in the other room. That didn't fly. So she convinced me to get.
Yeah, I'm really surprised that didn't work out. But
yeah, in hindsight, that was the best decision we ever made. She said we have to get another house, and so we got that second house and turned the master into another bedroom. So that's sort of how everything started. Great,
that's really cool. So now you have this portfolio of over 30 units. I guess we can build our way up there, but what sparked you from buying this one house to then buying a second, to then realizing that like this can be this, not only a side business, but something that you're pursuing actual financial freedom with? When did that kind of hit you? And you just talk about like the feelings behind turning this into full-time passive investments.
Yeah, great question. I mean, I don't know anyone who truly like loves their corporate job, but when I first started like working, I was like, I'm going to become a manager. I'm going down this track. I'm going to like rise the corporate ladder and become a VP. But that is like seriously just a grind. And after a few years working, I was just like, man, I don't know if I can do this like for the rest of my life, like gaining tons of weight at the job, just like not super happy. And so sort of along that line, that story I was telling you with my wife, we bought that second home, and I saw another home like 2 months after that second purchase, right? It was a primary home. And I was like, man, this would make a great rental for roommates. And so actually looked at the house. It was 5 bedrooms, 3 bath, and got it under contract, partnered with my parents, basically said, hey, mom, dad, like, do you want to partner with me on this? Like, I made it work for this first home. Can we do it for this third home? And they said, yeah, we can do that. Just pay us back the down payment money. Okay, great. So we got it under contract. And I remember my realtor was showing me the home, and I invited these 5 guys to come look at it. And they ended up signing contracts then and there. It was really just like, I printed out these paper contracts. The realtor was still showing it to me while I was under contract. And I don't even know if it was legal. So like, hopefully I don't get in trouble for that. And he's like, I've never seen anything like this, but we got the leases signed. And from then on there, I was like, holy crap. Like it's really easy for me to like, sort of like tap into this market here in Arizona. Like it's really tapping into like the student market, the young professional market, right? People are trying to save money by splitting up homes, renting by room. And I was like, wow, like we're cash flowing $1,000 a month on this third rental. We're cash flowing $1,000 a month on that first rental. That's like half my income already. Like, shoot, like what's the path to quit my job?
Awesome. Really, really cool. I have a really quick, funny story about what you're saying about these leases. I was under contract this would have been my first duplex. I was house hacking. I'm still house hacking, but I was under contract for my first duplex. And this guy was selling me the property, and I had no idea. I did the same thing that you did. I was under contract for the property, and I was showing the units. And this guy ended up canceling the deal. He thought I was having people live there while he still owned it. And I was just showing it to them. It was the funniest thing ever. And it was like, just a learning experience for me. I was like, I guess I shouldn't have been like, so I was so far ahead trying to like fill the unit as soon as I closed. And he's just like, I'm not selling to you. You're like a weirdo.
You called me and you're like, dude, I don't know why this guy doesn't like me. He's just not selling to me.
And then he sold it to somebody else like 2 days later.
Because you were being sketchy. I get it now. Looking like in hindsight, that's hilarious because I didn't know that's how it played out.
Yeah.
I think that's hilarious. I want to just say how realistic or like how people can relate to your story, right? Like they're going through their 9-to-5s every day, and you think, okay, let's just say maybe it's a sales job or something like that, but you're working your way up and you want to get to a manager position, then a VP, and then you're like, oh yeah, maybe I'll run the company. But at some point, for probably the majority, there's probably like 10% that'll continue and do that. That's their actual passion. But for the 90%, they hit a wall and they're like, whoa, what am I doing? Like, what's next? Like if I don't go into work every day, I'm screwed. Like I can't pay for my lifestyle. I can't live. I don't have shelter. I don't have food. I don't have transportation. And
because they spend too much money too, like way a lot, like almost as much as they earn. That's part of the problem, the desperation factor.
Right. But they also probably like I would even go to the 90% again, don't like what they do. And and it might be in something that they never studied or they need to make some money. Right. And so I just think it's interesting for you where you took a different path and you didn't stay the course, right? You're staying the course and you're having that income funnel your rentals, right? Which will funnel your freedom later. But that like, how are you managing, I guess, doing this on the side, right? Being that you do have a 9-to-5 still, like how are you managing your time and like, how do you allocate building this business?
Yeah, no, I'm super fortunate because I feel like I've built a lot of like systems and processes where I'm able to manage everything and it doesn't take me like that much time. Obviously in the beginning, when you're doing all this like rental stuff and you're trying to like show houses and sign leases and find tenants and, you know, make the listings, right? It's a lot to take in, but once you sort of start getting like used to it and you have a system down, it doesn't take that long. And so I'd say now, like we can get into more of like my journey to 30 units. But now it takes me maybe like 2 hours a week max to manage everything. And I'm really just focused on sort of like my career, like you said, to continue funding the rentals. But yeah, man, corporate life is just such a grind. And like, I just have so many other passions, like a little bit about me before I started real estate investing. So I basically got cut from my college golf team and sort of like, let's see, this was back in like 2013. I basically told the coach, I was like, you know, whatever, like, I don't need you. I'm going to go turn pro. So turned pro prematurely, went out to Arizona. That's why I have Arizona roots. Was playing the mini tours, losing tons of money, just like getting my ass handed to me. Learned a ton, right? Valuable experience. And then basically decided, you know what, like, I'm not good enough yet. I'm going to go back to school, finish up. Went to Arizona with sort of like the plan in mind, you know, like, oh, I'm going to go back to golf eventually. I'm going to make it out on tour while I'm working full time. But like, it is just impossible because you're spending so much time at work. The last tournament I really played was a PGA Tour China event out in 2017. I was practicing a ton. My boss let me come to work late. I played at the ASU course, ended up qualifying for that event. And then I was like, you know what, man, like I really think I could do it eventually. You know, I made the cut, if you guys follow golf, I got a 10 on a par 5 in front of this huge gallery, right? Like everyone was watching and I hit it out of bounds twice. The TV camera is right there. And it was a terrible experience to do that, but then ended up making the cut. And I was like, all right, well, you guys who play all the time, like I beat half of you, so I can do this. So that's sort of the goal now, like with all this passive income coming in, like how can I use that passive income to fund, you know, my dreams of quitting my job? How can I use it to fund golf, right? Because the tournaments are expensive, and then also fund my family, right? And feed my family at the same time.
I think you have this, it's not really a mantra because it's, a lot of people have this in their life, but you have this work optional kind of motto, and you've put yourself in a financial position to be able to work your 9-to-5, right? Which takes up, I assume, a decent amount of time, but you're able to also have this pursuit of your dreams to chase the PGA Tour. And can you just talk about like what work optional means to you and some of the steps that you've taken to create that sort of lifestyle for yourself?
Yeah. Work optional to me means that I've completely replaced my income, but really not just replaced my current income, but like how much money do I need to live for all the stuff that I want to do every month, right? So for instance, like golfing, for those of you who don't like know much about like golf tournaments, when you're like starting out and you're trying to go like on the mini tours, each tournament's like $1,000, right? So if you're playing 3 or 4 events and you don't make the cut and you're traveling out there, you're going to lose $5,000, right? So you definitely want to be like prepared, but I'm like, all right, well, worst case scenario, because I lived it. And when I sucked at golf, how much money do I need every month when I'm playing a ton of events? Okay, let's say like $5-6 grand. And then for the family, let's just say another $5 grand. And then I still want to do real estate investing. So I'm like, well, let's have like another like 5 or 10 grand. So like work optional to me is just like, I don't have to work, but I still choose to work because I want to grow the portfolio a little bit more. I'm super transparent, like people ask me all the time, like, what's the cash flow on your units now? Right. So 30 units is nice, but a lot of times people say unit count because it sounds impressive, but like, what's the cash flow? Right. So most of our units are single family homes. Some of them are Airbnb, some are multifamily, some are just, traditional rentals. Some have like the roommate situation, and I kind of like diversify into all these different avenues. But right now we're pulling in about 20,000 cash flow monthly. So definitely meets my goals of where I want to be, but still trying to grow it.
That's perfect, man. And the thing is like, if you had 10 Airbnbs, you could potentially cash flow 20 a month. Yep. If you had 60, single family homes that cash flow, 200 or 300 a month, you might be able to get there. So you're right. The number of units doesn't really matter, but $20,000. So you said 20,000 a month?
Yeah. 20,000.
Yeah. I mean, that's like, and that's, obviously cash flows with all the expenses taken out too. So it's like, that is a goal of ours.
Yeah, you set a number for yourself and you hit it, right? That's like most people just do it for financial independence, right? They say, hey, okay, here's my monthly expenses, and once those are covered, I hit financial independence and I can do what I want. But you did that, plus you built in your lifestyle on top of that and things you want to do, which is cool because that's like almost like another layer added on, or like the next step up the mountain. So that's amazing, and I think your story's really cool because we talk about pursuing dreams all the time. And like, you think when you're a kid, like, hey, what do I really want to do? And people like talk about like pursuing their dreams. Like, I want to be this business mogul. And like, if you really like turn and look in the mirror, like most people like they have way different dreams than that. They wanted to be a movie star. They wanted to be a singer. They wanted to be a pro basketball player, a pro football player. They wanted to be a skateboarder. They wanted to be a golfer, anything, firefighter, police officer. Like there's just different things that they just haven't done. Right. And so by giving yourself all this passive income and then like putting the hours and grinding it out to build this portfolio, now you can do that. And it's motivating and pretty incredible for not so long of a time, right? Like how long did it take you to build up this portfolio to 30 units?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, it's only really been a little under 3 years. Wow. And it sounds ridiculous, but basically what happened is after I bought that third property with my parents, I didn't have any money. My debt to income ratio wouldn't qualify. But I was finding deals. And so I basically partnered with another family member, my oldest brother. And I said, hey, like I'm finding deals. Can you utilize your credit, your down payment money? I will manage everything. We'll split it 50-50. And then we'll just work out a loan between ourselves, right? So I can pay you back my portion of the down payment. And he was totally all for that. The first deal we did together was this duplex in Phoenix, bringing in $4,000 a month, and our total expense, including CapEx, repairs, all that stuff, right? You want to put on paper was $2,000. So we split $1,000 of cash flow a month. And like, that's when the ball just really started rolling, right? I utilized my brother, and then sort of reached out to other investors as well. I didn't scale this all by myself, but did the same thing I did with my parents, with my brother, with a few other investors. And that's how we really just scaled this whole operation.
I want to touch on that, like finding deals that are that lucrative, right? I mean, I think about, you said Phoenix, correct? When I think about Phoenix as a market, I don't think of it like, the Midwest where you can cash flow as high as you're talking about when I say cash flow, I mean, just like in these areas that you can't even fill tenants because it's such a shitty area. Right. But how are you finding these deals at such a high cash flow number? What creative strategies are you using to put them together just to make this work for you? Because if we can find a deal that cash flows $2,000 a month, I mean, we're cutting down the number of units that we feel like we need to get to, significant.
Yeah. My whole strategy is really rent by room. I mean, before I got married, every time I lived somewhere I was rooming with someone. I had a roommate, right? And I'm like, man, we're paying like $600, $700, $800 a room, and there's 4 bedrooms here. This guy's making $3,000 a month. I know his mortgage is like $1,000. So I sort of like applied that when I was looking for deals, and it's very unique. I don't know if a ton of people do it. And I feel like I have a good feel for like how roommates are going to gel. But I literally lease out just the room, and then the common areas are shared. So like a normal 4-bedroom, two bed home, right now might rent for $1,800, $2,000. But if you rent each room out for $700-800, there's your extra $1,000 in revenue, right, or cash flow.
Is it by, do you pick these areas by like a university or something like that? You mentioned student housing. I think that's probably key, right?
Yeah, literally all of my stuff. We've started branching out a little bit more now, but most of my stuff is sort of in like the Phoenix, the greater Phoenix area, right? So you have like ASU, Midwestern, like all of these other universities out there. Young professionals are out there too. So, yeah, that's who I market to.
That's cool. What I like about this, and like a lot of people always knock like Section 8, but it's like a guaranteed payment every month, right? This reminds me of like when we were in school, and like, you know, some kids that had to put themselves through school and like they had to pay their rent, but there's a high clip. Their parents were paying for that rent. So for you, the parents are paying the rent. You don't have to really worry about the kid as much. You're like, all right, they want to get their kid through school and get this thing over with, and they're going to pay you every month. So the kid has somewhere to live with a roof above his head or her head.
Yeah. Oftentimes the co-applicant is a parent, right? So I can sort of rely on their credit because the student might not have credit, right? Or rental history, right? But I can rely on them to make the payment every month. So you're right.
Yep.
So Cam, I think this is an interesting point. What many people are probably thinking as well, when you get to 7, 8, 9, 10 mortgages, it gets really difficult to potentially have mortgages in your name, but you have 30 rentals. Is this a situation where your brother has enough money to fund all of this, or how does this work in that sense that you're able to qualify, the two of you are able to qualify for all these mortgages at one time? Is it in business lending? If you could just give us an idea of how this is kind of possible.
Yeah, that's a good question. I knew I was going to sort of like hit that mark, like where my debt was not going to offset, or my income wasn't going to offset my debt. So basically what I've done with my partners is when I find the deals, I'll go out to the different people that I've sort of partnered with and say, hey, are you able to, do this deal, right? Because they're securing the mortgage, right? We're both going on title as partners, but they're securing the debt. So I'm not on the debt. So it frees up my debt to do my own stuff. It's a great deal for them because, even though they're having to use up debt, maybe they're trying to get into the rental game, which is the case with a lot of my partners, right? And then they get to experience cash flow. They get to experience all the benefits. I sort of like walk them through like how I manage everything, right? And sometimes they want to like be a part of that. Sometimes they want it to be completely hands off. But that's how I've been able to scale so much, right? I haven't done any sort of commercial loans. It's really all just personal loans.
So how does that work? Say for example, you take me, right? And you couldn't get a loan, but I could. So I take the loan out, and then do we split on the deed? Is it still 50-50, or how does that work out where like I would pay you X amount per month without like any real liability, right? Like you're essentially, I'm taking all the liability when you're just like a silent partner almost. Like how does that work like in the nitty gritty?
Yeah, in the nitty gritty, if you want to get into the details, basically my partners will secure the loan, we'll transfer title. Sometimes in an LLC, right, we're 50-50. Some banks are going to do the due on sale clause for the LLC, but like that never really happens. Oftentimes we do it in a trust, right? So a trust, when you move something into a trust, that doesn't flag the banks at all, right? So you move it into a land trust, right? The beneficiary is my LLC, and then whatever partners LLC or whatever entity they have. And then at the end of the month, usually what I do is, this is very enticing to my partners, is I use the cash flow, like the total cash flow. Let's say the total cash flow is $2,000. 50% of that's mine, 1,000, 50% to the partner. I give them back my half, that 50%. They take all 2,000 to pay down my loan, right? So let's say like we went in the property and it was $20,000 total, just to make like a super easy small number. I owe $10,000, but that property is cash flowing $2,000 a month. I get 1,000 of it. So I pay back my partner 1,000 every month. And after 10 months, I'm fully bought in. He is like paid off. And now I can start receiving my portion of those cash flows.
So you're paying. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Well, when you're saying you're paying off, or you're paying off paying off your debt. You're paying off your portion of the down payment.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. I thought so. Yeah. So that's actually, That's really, really cool. And I think it's just such a creative way to get into this where you don't have to mess with that debt to income ratio and you can build this portfolio just by finding the deals. I want to talk about, you said these deals are coming to you. How are you finding them? Like, what is your strategy to find them? Are you finding them on the MLS? Do you have relationships with wholesalers? What's the way that you've created this niche in your market so that you can comfortably go out to these partners and say, I'm your guy. I'm going to keep bringing this to you.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, to be honest, I don't really have like a huge wholesale pipeline that comes in. Most of my stuff is MLS, like, believe it or not. So my realtor just, he has this search set up and I have it for like a 2-bedroom, a 3-bedroom, a 4-bedroom, a 5-bedroom place, right? Because I really know the market well and how much I can rent per room, right? It's really like 700 to 800 per room that you can push, right? So I'm like, okay, well, if it's a 5-bedroom home, then like I could get $4,000, right? So then I sort of use that metric and look like, okay, what's sort of between that like $350,000 to $500,000 range, right? That's going to meet the cash on cash return that I want to have, right? Because cash on cash return, I'd like to have, be at least 15%, right? Yep. Generally now, like, all of my stuff is around 25 to 30%. But right now on this market, it is a little tough, even on the rent by room situation. So I've really sort of pivoted to Airbnb because that's where the numbers just look amazing.
I definitely want to talk Airbnb after this question. But specifically, my gears are turning here with the rent by the room situation. So say you get the property under contract, right? You're ready to go and you're looking to place people in the room. Kind of 2-part question. A is, do these people all know each other? And then B, when you're setting up the leases, how does that exactly work? Are they all on a year lease, or do you allow like some people to go month by month, 6 months? Like, how does this whole thing work so that way you can get people locked in and feel comfortable that they're going to pay?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, so they're not all on the same lease. They're all on an individual lease, right? For this one specific room with like stated clauses in the lease that like there's common areas, right? It's very similar to like student housing at ASU or whatever university. I do my normal credit checks, my background checks. Sometimes, like I said, with younger students, they don't have any of that stuff. So the parents are a co-applicant there. So, can have some confidence in them paying that there. But a lot of times, yeah, these people don't know each other. But it's funny, my metric for, who would make a good roommate, I started off with really just male housing is, well, I've had like over 100 roommates in the last 10 years before I got married. I'm 32, but I still know what it's like to have roommates. I mean, I have a forever roommate now. So
2.
Yeah. Right. Like, and a lot of times I'm just like, man, would I want to live with this person? Right. And that sort of has been a good barometer of like, okay, is this person going to be a good roommate? And, and they pass all the other checks, sign them. Right. And then what ends up happening is now our portfolio is so built up and there's, people who are living in these places. Well, when one room opens up, they want their friend to come in. So when their friend comes in, that makes it easy for me, pay them a referral fee. Their friend comes in, they pass all the checks. And then now it's just like the house is just full of friends, right? So when one person leaves, like everyone's always leaving. They're always leaving in a different space, right? So what's nice about it is I never have like, oh my gosh, I have to fill 5 rooms like all in the same month. One guy is moving out of state or he graduated. So he leaves in July. Another guy started a new job 2 months later. So he leaves in August. So it's like sort of like this little trickle effect where like one guy leaves and I fill a room and then like, it's never just one big, like boom, like I have to do it all at the same time.
Cam, how close are you? Are you on a college campus with these, or are you just close by? And I have a follow-up question to your answer to this.
When I was living in Arizona, like 15 minutes away.
Okay. Got it. So, I mean, these properties, like, are they on college campuses?
No, I don't have any of them on the campus. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. So this is an interesting point. So we have a rehab that we just finished and we are I would say probably 15 minutes or so from multiple places where people go to grad school. Like you're not by any means on college campuses, but you're not far. And if you run some numbers on our property, if we were to rent this property out to a family's not going to pay more than $2,100, $2,200, $2,300. Like it's just in the area, it's an up and coming area, but it's nothing crazy. Now it's a 4-bedroom. we could easily tell people $650 a month for these rooms, and you're filling that all day if you have 4 grad students, and that's $2,600 a month. You just upped your cash flow to by $400 just by, or $300, whatever it is, just by renting it by the room. Now, there are some pros and cons, right? If I have a family in there, they may be there 7 years, right? If we have grad students in there, they're going to be in and out 2-3 years, and you're going to have more turns, maybe more maintenance when you turn it, just because they're younger. But I'm taking that cash flow all day. I know Rye has a question.
Parlaying off that, which is obviously once again, gears are turning because I was thinking about this deal and the proximity to the universities, but also what system or what app do you use to manage this? Like, I'm thinking of like Corey and I specifically, right? We got this unit and then we have a bunch of them, and like, it's almost a headache to manage all these leases, right? Like, are you going with like the mom and pop shop? Like, you're just doing it on your Excel sheet and rolling, or do you have a system where you pay monthly? Because I clearly I believe you don't have a property manager hired out. Correct me if I'm wrong, but either A, do you have a property manager, or do you have a system that you use and you plug in all the numbers and you can upkeep this pretty easily every month?
Yeah, I self-manage everything. Like, believe it or not, I actually enjoy doing it. So I use a couple systems, right, to sign leases. I used to do like paper leases, and I was like printing stuff and like writing out the lease, and oh my gosh, they're like, and then meeting people in person to like sign the lease. And I was like, dude, like, I'm just wasting time. So I use Sign Request, which is very similar to DocuSign, right? I have every property on there. Everything's prepped, right? Ready to go. So when, just click and they sign it. And then also to manage all of the rent payments, I was doing like Venmo and Zelle and PayPal. And that's fine when you have like 4 people you're managing, or I'll say people, cause I rent by room, right? 8 people, 10 people, but like now we have like 80 tenants. So I was literally trying to like Venmo request people, and I didn't remember like how much I was charging a certain person. So I'm having to open up lease agreements and just waste time. So I use Rentler. I researched a ton of different rental platforms. Rentler, I think, is the best one, and actually is free. And so like when people sign up to sign the lease, I set up like a payment series for them. They can auto pay there. It shows all the history for the rents, right? It does my credit check, my background check for them when they do the application, because the application's on Rentler as well.
Excellent.
Very cool.
And when you're thinking about like marketing these units, do you use Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist? Like I'm not calling you mom and pop shop, but like, I love that you're kind of like hands-on in this thing, because a lot of people think that they can just pay someone and they'll do it all. But that's where you lose a lot of cash flow, right? So how are you marketing?
Yeah, totally. Sometimes I list on Zillow, sometimes I list on Rentler, but that's sort of like my last scenario. Believe it or not, I really just market a lot in these like Facebook groups where it's like university, like ASU student, like housing page, right? Like, or whatever ex-college housing page, or Mesa Young Professionals housing, right? Like, and honestly, like that has generated enough leads for me. And then I still run them through my credit and background checks, right? I require 2 referrals from either past roommates or landlords, right? And generally we have really good experiences. I've actually never had an eviction. And I've never had anyone not pay me rent. So
wow.
I'm knocking on wood. Hope that doesn't happen. But it's been a really positive experience for me. And then, Corey, to your last point, you talked about like your one place would, rent for $2,200 and maybe you can get $2,800. Like, think about it. Like, yeah, there's slightly more turns. There could be more damage. I mean, that's just like the nature of renting anyways, but you don't know like who is going to cause what. But the way I look at it is, man, if I'm getting $800 a month more cash flow, that's $10,000 a year. Even if there's $3,000 more of damage, like,
we teeter back and forth between this thing the whole time. It's like, we're trying to get out of self-managing, but it's just, dude, you don't want to lose the cash flow. It's one of those things like, I'll deal with a call a month. It's going to suck. It's going to be annoying. You'll bitch about it, but it's part of the game. Eventually we will, right? We talked about it. We're over, when we get over like that 10, 20 unit, we probably will. But I love this Rentler program. I'm definitely going to take a look into it. Especially that it's free. I think it's really cool. We use Rent Ready. We love them. They're like $9 a month. They're super cheap, and it seems synonymous with what you're doing. But I always like seeing what's out there, just because you never know what could work for you. We talked about this in a previous episode, like the way you interpret data and the way like a certain software works. Even if it's the same software, it looks a little different. It's going to maybe make you feel a little bit better and more comfortable using it. So thanks for breaking it down. Pretty, like, I feel like I have a grasp on this. And even if I am a newbie investor, or I haven't done this, like, I'd be motivated to go find a place near a college campus, find a couple guys, gals that want to live together, or they don't even know each other, and list it all on the Facebook Marketplace or on college campus like ad board. We've seen that before when we were in a fraternity, lived together, saw the stuff, found a place, and I feel like I could do it. Like, you know what I mean? So you broke it down very, very granularly. So I appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah. Send your tenants a referral fee for when they bring a new roommate in, $50, $100, then you never have to list anything again.
One last thing, I guess, communication wise. So I'm thinking of, like, obviously this comes with management, right? But like, when they go to hit, when do your tenants hit you up? Like, a lot of people are like, oh, I don't want this 9 PM call. Do you have like office hours where they can reach you directly? I know you have Rentler that has this, if it's a maintenance request, they submit through there, but there's certain things that they hit you up about, or no?
Yeah. I mean, I'm probably more hands-on than like I should be, but I actually have like Facebook groups with all of the different houses. So if like there's ever anything that they like need to talk about, right? Like, people usually just text me or Facebook message me. For maintenance requests, they all know like where to go. So generally, like, that's all they really want to talk about is what's wrong with the house. But, hey, we need to cut my lease short, or we need to do this, right? Like, that's how I manage it. Actually, talking about leases, not to go on a tangent, something that has been super beneficial to us is, generally when you have tenants leave, like, and they break their lease early, right? So most places will charge you, the remainder of the lease, or they'll charge you a penalty of like 6 months worth of rent, right? To really incentivize you not to leave. I find with young professionals, maybe they have to go to state, or their job takes them somewhere else. If we do a 2-month penalty on their lease, right, we can actually get them to pay and cancel, because 2 months isn't impossible, right? Like, okay, that's a fair penalty. Then they get it to be out of their lease. And then when they leave, we turn the unit and someone else comes. So actually, like, believe it or not, every single one of our units has a negative vacancy rate, because we have more cash coming in from these cancellations, right? It's flexible for them. It's great for me. And then you just fill it, and then you have more cash coming in. It's
brilliant. And I keep saying this again, I don't want to make it sound like people rely on their parents for everything, but I'm just thinking about, if you're in a panic, you're trying to get out of something. Maybe this is just my personal, like, in my small bubble, but like, if you're panicked and you only have to pay 2 months, you'll do it. If you have to get out of something, you're like, 6 months is a lot, right? Even 4 months, You're like, but 2 months, dude, you hit a sweet spot there. And I absolutely love it.
I knew people that were paying during COVID and living elsewhere and just paying their rent
for 6 months.
Yeah, exactly.
And some people, and then they start using them.
I mean, that's a luxury to have, right? I mean, but just like, right. I wouldn't do that, but people do.
Yeah. And, I don't know, this is like slightly motivating, whereas I had thought about the student housing thing, like living on campus, off campus. I'm like, this is pretty cool. Like, this guy makes X amount. Like, it's just insane to me that what I'm paying, and I know this house definitely is not worth that. You know what I mean? But like, you can up by the room. The clientele, if you will, or the tenants, I personally think that Corey and I and you, right, being that we're like young guys, sort of hip, and can have a conversation with, seemingly we never met each other, right? We're vibing really well.
Yep.
With these tenants, I think we could get the point across so much easier than an older person that considers their place a home, and they are like, I'm paying for this home, you're fixing it. I'm not touching anything. Like, when we're in college, you're like moving fast. You're like, dude, this thing broke. Let's just pad up a couple bucks together. Let's just fix this thing, be on our way. Let's not hit up Cam. It's just annoying. It's just another thing. Like, we got to go on with the day. We got to go out. We got a party. We got to go to class, whatever it is. And then I know we could vibe with them. Be like, dude, you treat my place like a home, treat it nice, and I'll treat you nice. This will be a very smooth relationship. It almost gets me more excited about the game, like, to get into that side.
I couldn't agree more. I have, I have a couple of tenants who are a little bit older, and they're Spanish speaking tenants. And I find that the just communication barrier has frustrated me, and it's not any of their fault or anything. And these are great tenants, by the way, they pay on time, but when issues happen, I'm like, I don't know what they mean. Like, and it's just like, it has nothing to do with their age really, but it's the clientele in terms of like, I'm not near a campus. It's more residential. Like I would think that I agree with you, Ryan. I think, that's part of your client, your tenants are your business. So if you can kind of gear that around who you are as a person, it would probably benefit both.
I don't think we would mind as much with the maintenance request. We'd be like, all right, you got to go deal with Joey. All right, whatever, man.
Yeah. So we had a tenant, actually it was 3 guys. They're in one of our condos, and they messaged me. They're like, hey, the lights are out. I was like, oh, okay. Like, flip the breaker. They couldn't figure it out. Nothing worked. I was like, how long have the lights been out? 3 weeks. Sure. Oh, just in the living room. Okay. Like, yeah, like it didn't really bother us, but like, yeah, like we need some light.
It's almost a month. We probably should hit Cam up.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay, like that's fine. Like, thanks for telling me. But like, yeah, a lot of times, like just very like go with the flow. It's not a big deal. So it's sort of how I am too.
I love that niche that you found, man. Yeah. It's really, really cool.
Yeah. It's making us think. And we're after this property that we're going to close on, we're going to have this kind of alignment meeting where we try to figure out what our next step is. So it's another key to throw in there. But one question, go ahead.
Oh, I think we're probably going on the same path here.
Yeah.
But you seem like you have 30 units, right? And at some point, one of these jumped out and you're like, dude, that was the best deal I ever did, or your most lucrative deal or most fun deal. Can you talk about that? So that way we can have some young aspiring investors here be like, all right, like this is why I want to get into real estate.
Yeah. Maybe break it down like detailed wise, if you could.
Yeah, totally. So I'll shift gears here. It actually won't be like a student rental, but this was like last January. So a year and a half ago, one of my best friends, he's sort of watching me on the sidelines for the first year and a half, trying to get him to come in, sort of like, wasn't really sure. And I said, hey, you know what, you need to really get into real estate. And I think, his goal was to hit 6 figures in cash flow. And I said, you know what, the only way that you can possibly do that right now is probably Airbnb. So, he never had experience with it. I had a little bit of experience with Airbnb because basically we rented out one of our rooms we turned one of our rooms into like a guest suite. So it had its own separate entry. I tried to convince my wife like, hey, we'll pay for all this nice furniture in there, and that room we could have rented to someone for like $700 a month, but I didn't want to just have like someone be there all the time using our kitchen. So we actually put it on Airbnb, listed it. We're averaging about $2,200 a month from that one stupid room. And my mortgage was $1,700, right? For that one room.
And they're not there the whole month, right? Like they're there, are they?
I mean, we have like almost 100% occupancy, but it's like separate. It's its own thing in the house. Like they don't have access to anywhere else except that room and bathroom. And so that sort of got my gears turning. And I was like, man, like tell my friend Tanner, like, if you're going to really try to make it in real estate, like I would start with Airbnb. So he's like, all right, let's partner on something. So we partnered. This is the best deal I've ever done. We partnered on a deal up in Flagstaff, Arizona, super sort of like trendy modern house. It was $460. The lady was selling it furnished, and it was just like pristine. And it was weird because 3 people had dropped out of the home before. And I was like, why did they drop out? Like, what's wrong with it? And basically like there's a utility company across the street. And sometimes they might have to access a utility line like under the cement. So like that could be an issue down the road, but like they pay for it. So I was like, okay, that doesn't really bother me. But I look at this property, the lady's selling the furniture for 20 grand. We talk her down to 4 grand somehow. I just said, let's just offer and see what she says. So we bought it as a vacation home. It was 10% down. We split the down payment. I actually paid up front here because this is my best friend. So we were all in like 30 grand a piece. And this last month, that thing did 11,000 gross, and our total expense was 3,000. Our mortgage is about 2, and I add in another $1,000, right? So it's crazy. Yeah, we're cash flowing a ton. That thing this year is going to cash flow $20,000 to $30,000 each, me and my partner. And yep.
Not to like jump in here over you, but that is very exciting. And like, obviously the numbers jump out at you, right? How do you, a couple parts. One, like, how does that sustainable long term? Like, do you think it is, right? Because these Airbnb, I'm not saying it's a fad, but it's been around, it's pretty new. It's not like super long term. What do you think about it, like long term? And then if it doesn't work out, will you just convert this to a rental? Do the cash flow numbers still work out? Like, what's your plan there?
Yeah. When I look at all my Airbnb properties, I look at it as if like, hey, what could we do as a traditional rental? What could we do as like a sort of like roommate situation rental? What are the cash on cash numbers for both of those? And then what's like my high scenario with Airbnb, right? Just in case like the city puts an ordinance or you can't do it anymore, you always want to have a backup plan. But I really look at all these Airbnbs and like our minimum cash on cash return is like 40%. This one in particular, right? We were in 60 grand. We're going to profit 60 grand, 100% cash on cash return, right? And then it's also appreciated 250,000, right? So like, it's the numbers are crazy, but like if I was going to give anyone advice right now, it would really be like, look at vacation rentals. There's definitely competition, but look at vacation rentals where a lot of people are migrating to, right? Like Arizona, I think we're lucky here because so many people are moving from California and New York and Florida. I don't think that's really a trend that's going to stop. They're going to places that are cheaper, right? Colorado, Texas, Arizona, Idaho, Utah. What's funny too is like some of our smaller vacation rentals that are like 1 bedroom, 1 bath. I was like, man, no one's going to rent these in the summer, but so many people are just coming in to the state that like it's always booked even in the summer. So I think migration patterns are important. When you're
I really like that. We have I call him a friend now, Travis
Zappia.
Yeah, do you know Travis?
Yeah, we have a mastermind. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Awesome.
I was on the phone with him 2 weeks ago because me and my girlfriend went to Miami, and my girlfriend's like, "We're buying a place here. Like, we'll Airbnb it out." And little did I know, I'm like, "Oh, I'm doing this," right? And I called Travis. He's like, no. He's like, Miami is like He's like, it's not going to work in Miami because there's a lot of lobbyists. There's a lot of money that are pushing the hotels. And like, it's very, very hard to do Airbnbs in Miami. Not impossible, right? But you have an Airbnb friendly area. And he said that the biggest advice he would give me if I was looking into that is like, where are these areas? Obviously the Smoky Mountains are huge now. Towards this way, but like he's like, what are the areas that have Airbnb friendly and that the counties like want to promote it because it's a big portion of their income for tourism. So I think that's really cool, and Airbnb will absolutely be a part of our portfolio. It's just about how we can do it
and where
and like, obviously it's a diversification kind of thing for us too, but like we're working our asses off to get $300, $400, $500 a month in cash flow, like all day. Like when we get out off this, we have other things to do before we go to bed to try to figure out how we're doing this. And then at a certain point, I think David Green told us this. He's like, you're just going to run into a point where you're like, how much work do you want to do to get $300 a month in cash flow? Now, 25 years from now, I'm sure we'll be thanking ourselves that we did it. That's not the point. But like to have this opportunity in front of you to get $1,000 a month, $4,000 a month in cash flow, it's just, it's too good to not at least dip your feet into it. I think.
Totally agree. And I like the diversification aspect, obviously.
We just have to work as a rental.
It's more so like for fun though, too. Like I want to like explore it and see if we like it. Cause then that could be your avenue, right? And you just keep going that way and going that way. And you can pad your portfolio with some like doubles and triples, and maybe that like $500-$600 a month or whatever you want to call it. But I'm curious when like analyzing these type of deals, it seems to me, obviously you analyze your deals for like 4 different exit strategies that we just talked about. But like when you go strictly Airbnb, what do you look for? And like, how do you run these numbers to be like, okay, yeah, this is going to work? Because for me, it's foreign right now, right? Like I'm thinking, okay, cool. I'm thinking about Travis, like, right. Thinking
he makes so much money doing this too.
I forget where it is in Florida, but he's
in Orlando.
Orlando.
Yep.
Disney's right there. Great. I understand that people want to go down there, but like you pick Florida. Great. I love it. It's hot down there. People want to flock there. But then like, now let's get to the numbers. Like how does a property actually work? And how do you know you're going to make this cake a month? Like, geez, like $4,000 is crazy. It's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, when you run your analysis, you're going to do all your basic stuff, right? You're going to do like repairs, CapEx, all the utilities, right? Well, I should mention all my tenants normally pay all utilities. So I never have that expense, which is nice. But Airbnb, you definitely have it. All the extra like toilet paper, shampoo, right? That's another expense, cleaning fees. The best way to look at like how that market's going to do is really like look at AirDNA. It's a service you can pay. You can pay like $40 just to look at like one specific zip code if you've narrowed it down. I don't start with AirDNA. I sort of just like look at like, I'll zoom in on Airbnb on the map and just look at like all the different like listings, and then just sort of click on their calendar at different times of the year and just say, oh wow, they're booked out. This, you can tell how much people are booked out, right? Like if it's totally grayed out, okay, they're probably just doing it for themselves, but it's like spotted around, that's definitely a legitimate calendar. So you can sort of see like, oh, they're charging this is what their occupancy is, at least for like the next 3 months, and sort of get a feel for, okay, this is what it should be bringing in revenue wise, and then run your numbers off that.
Really, really cool. We did a golf trip in Ocean City, Maryland, which is out here on the East Coast in Maryland, by the shore. And it was like, I actually took notice when I was there. The guy had like a sheet essentially that he emailed us. These are the things you have to do before you leave. This is the Wi-Fi. These are all the questions that you might have. We paid $2,000 for a long weekend with 8 guys. I'm doing some math. The house is probably worth $400,000, and I'm like, this guy is just crushing it. Like, yep. He's crushing it, and he's in a neighborhood that like the neighbors know, like, oh, this guy rents out his house. I didn't do the all the way on the math, but I'm sure that weekend pretty much covered the mortgage, and it was just a long weekend down there. So it's like, this is possible all over the country. It's just what I think is like, where do I want to travel? I had Miami in my head, but like you just have to do your research on the friendly areas. So it's
exciting.
It's really exciting. Very, very cool stuff.
Yeah. And if you guys have any like small units, like that's how I started. I tested it with a small like unit in our house. And then I tested it with one of our like 1 bed, 1 bath units. And I was like, well, let's just see if this works, in its own thing. And that thing's bringing in like $2,500 a month. We were leasing it for like $900, and it's just like a no brainer. Right. Yeah. So then I was like, shoot, this is really going to work. And actually those smaller units, like I feel like they're almost COVID proof, because people are always traveling even when COVID happens, but maybe they're just traveling in smaller groups. You want to be a little careful when you have like those mansions, right? Because who knows what the vacancy is.
Getting 25 people together. Yeah, exactly. But I think that's a really good point. The only downside that I have is like in our area is like, ain't nobody coming to South Jersey that's not by the shore, just like where we invest. Philadelphia, for sure. I've thought about buying a 1 bed or 2 bed in the city because people are going to always want to go there. I'm sure that would work out, but like we'd have to just figure out the areas that make the most sense. And like Arizona, like a lot of people are traveling there. So it seems like you're caught in a really good wave.
It's kind of a fun play too. It's like, all right, let's get a pad somewhere we'd want to go if we're not renting it, right? So that you can enjoy the fruits of your labor when you want to chill. And so that's why we thought about Miami. Yeah, exactly. So that's awesome fun. And obviously you got to worry about like tenant friendly states versus landlord and like all that stuff.
Yep. HOA, all that stuff. Yes.
Yeah.
I
like it. I like that it's funny. We brought up Travis, and who knew you guys were in a mastermind together. It just goes to relationships, networking, and you guys are both heavy hitters in the real estate game. So I think
we may be hitting you up to get your opinion. So
yeah,
cool. Yeah, totally, man.
Yeah. Really appreciate that. Kind of winding down the show here a little bit. We value your time, so I don't want to take too much of it up, but we have a segment of the show called the Core Four. And essentially this is 4 questions for us to get to know you on a personal level a little bit and let our listeners know. So we'll start you off easy, but throughout your journey, I'm sure you've done a lot of research and a lot of reading. So what's one book, either your favorite book or one book that's like kind of changed your outlook on the investing game or helped you get to the next level that you could share with our listeners?
I really like The Millionaire Next Door. I love that book because it just talks about like net worth and like how people truly like save money, right? They might not look like they're worth a lot of money because they're not driving fancy cars, but in reality, the people who driving fancy cars aren't worth a lot of money. Just because like in the beginning, a lot of my friends, silent or unsilent, are sort of skeptical about real estate investing. And I was doing all this stuff, saving money, not going out, like sort of being like a hermit, right? To get these properties. But now it's just paid off so much, right? Like, our net worth has grown exponentially and the unit count's grown exponentially. So I love that book.
Awesome. I have a question 1A before we get to the second question. I wanted to ask you, what are your future goals? We don't normally ask this one in the Core 4, but what are your future goals with your real estate business? I'm really curious to know that.
Man, that's such a good question. Like I told my wife we were going to slow down a little just because it's been crazy. She feels like she hasn't seen me for 2 years, but I'm like, hey, it's going to be worth it because now literally I can like help you raise the kids like all the time and be home all the time, right? Like I'll go practice golf in the morning and then come back and then I'm there, right? Like I would love to have $1 million in passive income a year, right? So that's the next goal. So, now we're at 240. Continue to grow this, maybe not grow as fast as we have just because I want to like slow down and enjoy things a little bit more. But, it's crazy because like all the money we make from real estate right now just goes back in real estate. And it's like, well, there's going to be more deals.
Yeah. You're not living off of it, right? Like, or maybe you are a little bit, but like you have a full-time job too. So you're not like
I'm not fully
enjoying it. Yeah.
Yeah, but we'll always have something allocated to invest more in more real estate. And then eventually, like just over time, I feel like it's almost impossible not to hit it if you take action.
Damn, I got 1B. So I'm just sorry. I guess we'll bump down the core for a little bit. But I'm just thinking about amazing, right? The 240. I'm just thinking of the big egg
that's
here.
Pretty good stuff.
Congratulations. That's amazing. You're starting to be able to do more than be able to do what you want. What's your strategy for like paying down mortgages and like the amortization schedule and then like your debt to income ratio and then also like giving yourself some cash, right? Like, do you take a yearly bonus where you're like, hey, this is my cash for me and the fam to do whatever you want? Or it's just funny because like once this money's here, like how's the pie divvied up?
That is a great 2-part question. Hopefully I don't offend any of your listeners or I don't offend any Dave Ramsey fans, but why would you ever pay down your mortgage, right? Like interest rates are so low, you're paying 2.5%, 3.5%. If I pay down my, like for instance, if I have $100,000 loan or the home's worth $100,000 and I spend $100,000 to pay it off, but my interest rate was 2.5%, my return on that money is 2.5%, like, or it's whatever your cap rate is, right?
Sure,
so like, why would you do that? Right. So like for me, I always tell people like, instead of like paying your home in cash, like a $300,000 home in cash is $300,000 out of your pocket. Now, if I divide that into 5 down payments, now that's 5 homes, right? And that $300,000 home maybe was going to bring me $2,000 a month, but now I have 5 homes and my mortgage is $800 a month, but each one of those is bringing me $2,000. Well, that's 1,200 times 5. That's I don't know what that is, $7,000, right? That's $7,000 cash flow versus your original 2,000 cash flow, right? And that the original 2,000, you don't get any interest deductions, right? So you're paying more tax on that.
Got it. So you're a leverage guy, the more debt, the better, like you're paying it off with other people's money. So
as long as the property cash flows,
get
as much debt as you can.
Awesome. Really good advice.
Where's the rest of the money going? Not letting you pass over it. So,
oh yeah.
Like just how do you divvy up your pie? Like, are you taking a yearly bonus for yourself or like, I know cause you said all my money's going back into real estate, right? I'm just curious. I think there's a lot of people that have index fund investing. They're like, well, I want to take a trip at the end of the year and use X amount of the money and or 70% is go back in real estate. Like, do you have a system like built out or is it kind of a little bit more lax?
Right now, like we live off of like my day job. And then all the real estate goes back into real estate. But I am like fully off the day job. Hopefully no one at my job ever listens to this podcast. When I am fully off my job, right, it's going to be, I'm allocating 50,000 to golf full time. I'm allocating another 100,000 to the family, and then everything else goes back into real estate.
Cool.
So cool.
Love that. Thank you.
You're in a position of pretty, some financial strength there. So that's really awesome. Great. So we've talked about all the great things that you've done. And I want to know the second question, what's your biggest mistake that you've made in your investing or your real estate career and how have you learned from it?
Man,
it's gotta be something, Cam. Can you give us something to...
You are pretty close to perfect, bro. But
no, there's definitely been mistakes, man. Man, I was like really into tiny homes at one point. This was like 2 years ago. And I was like so obsessed with like getting a tiny home, doing Airbnb, putting in my backyard, basically got like ratted on by one of my neighbors. And so I just was like stuck with this tiny home because you can't like rent out a non like permanent structure in your backyard, right? Which makes sense. So ended up having to move that tiny home. Technically it's like a travel trailer. That's what it's like, titled as, moved it into a trailer park. And I was just like, crap, how are we going to like rent this thing out. So luckily we have someone renting it out, but that thing does provide me negative 200 a month in cash flow. And
there 238,800. I think you'll be all right.
There she is. That's great, man.
Yeah, dude, we embrace the mistakes too. And it's like our mistakes are amplified because we don't have all that backing of the cash flow. But I think it's just, you have to live and learn and do stuff like that in order to know what's right and what's not. So it's all good.
Thought he was going to Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I thought you were going to say the 10 on the par 4 in front of everybody, but clearly that worked out for you.
Yeah. Another mistake. I don't know if I would call this a mistake, but like right when I did that first house and I had roommates, like I still wasn't really investing, right? This was 2018 May. I didn't really start investing till like 2000. What was it? No, sorry, that was 2017 May. I didn't start investing till like 2018, but I was like feeling like, oh man, I don't have a mortgage payment. I'm just going to drop money on a BMW i8. So I like spent $1,300 a month on this lease, and the car was so sick. But in hindsight, I don't know if I would take it back, but in hindsight, I really could have used all that extra income and debt to go do more stuff.
Do you have it?
Do you still have it?
I did sell it.
That's hilarious, man. I sold a Mercedes. He sold a Mercedes. It was just like, it's so funny. We like learned the hard way. We were like, damn, there's a time and place where my passive income will pay for this, but right now I'm actively paying for it and it's pissing me off.
You sort of have to do it. Like, dude, I can buy this. I'm buying this thing. And then you're like, oh, fuck. Like I shouldn't have bought this thing. Oh, it does.
That's really cool. The i8s. I just saw one the other day down the shore and I was like, is this
the one with the butterfly doors or the, it's kind of
a Beamer.
One?
Yeah.
Dude, it's so sick. It's just like a semi, not dumbed down version by any means, but like the Lamborghini, right? I'm thinking that kind of a version of that.
The poor man's Lamborghini, but gets more attention than the Lamborghini.
Yes.
Yeah.
From dudes.
If that's what you're, cheers, whatever. Cool. So the third question.
Question 3. Yep. So probably going to restructure this question moving forward for listeners, but I do like it for certain reasons. So the question is, who's your... yeah, I'm making the executive decision. It gets too complicated to explain it sometimes.
Yeah.
But you'll get the point. So who is your who for 2021? And basically what we mean by this is by meeting this person that you feel that your business could excel to the next level or take you to greater heights. And if you don't have someone that you're aspiring to meet, right, that you're like, hey, like if I meet this person, I'll be at my next level. Someone that maybe helped you along your journey and allowed you to scale your business to where it is.
Yeah, I mean, I won't like divulge names, but I think like I just shout out like really the first 2 investors that reached out to me on Bigger Pockets, right? I did a little post and they were like, hey, like I want to learn. I'm willing to take the step with you. Like, let's invest. And that's where I sort of started then like getting more traction with other people. In terms of like, who do I want to partner with or like, who's my who like going forward? I think I need to do a little better job of networking. Maybe you guys can connect me with someone in the right space, but looking more to like sort of like larger multifamily, bigger deals now. Haven't really played in that space. So would love to even partner with someone who knows that new construction, right? Like how does that world work? Even though it's real estate, it's very different, right?
We'll talk after the show.
We definitely have a few people we can introduce.
Yeah. Very cool.
That's great. Thank you for that.
Yeah. So 4th question, a little bit deeper. What do you want your legacy to be, Cam? What are you doing this all for?
Man, I'm just doing it to buy my time back, right? Like I think everyone has a different why, but like if you just have unlimited time, then you can really pursue your passions, whatever it is, right? My passion is golf. My passion is my family, right? I want to be able to spend time with my daughter, our soon to be kid, my wife's pregnant, right? Like as our family grows, just like help raise them, cause I know like my in-laws, my dad even, right? Like he just wasn't home a lot cause they're providing for the family. Right. But like, I'm like, man, like you don't ever get those hours back. So, time.
That's a great answer. And it's definitely our why too. It's like, you wake up and nobody wants to wake up and have a midlife crisis when they're in their mid 50s and be like, damn, like what am I doing this all for? And time is the most valuable resource you have. It's not even close. So.
Yeah. You just got to find your purpose and your passions. And then, I mean, for me, I just hate when people tell me no or tell me what to do. I don't know what it is. It's definitely an ego problem, but
no, not really.
do and craft my own life and just do what I want when I want. Right. But, last drop time.
We made it to the last drop.
We made it. So
Cool.
last drop is, simple question, but it makes you reflect back to younger you. So question is, knowing what you know now, what advice would you give your younger self if you could go back and give 18, 19-year-old Cam advice for the outlook of his future?
Invest in 2009, like start investing early, right? Like I didn't start till I was 28, 29, right? Like, and hopefully that gives hope to some of these younger listeners, right? Like, shoot, I obviously I think I'm like a special case, but like, I think it's definitely achievable in like 5-10 years. Like you can be free. So like, yeah, invest early, get educated, and then like take action. Like maybe not just to my younger self, but to your listeners, right? Because a lot of people are going to be listening to these podcasts, reading books, and read and talk and network, but then they never do anything.
Yep.
Right. So like, it's great that you guys are doing stuff, right? So you're getting your hands dirty, you know, like what it takes, but these people just are always on the sidelines. Like you have to take action. And then once you have a little bit of success, that feeds the success again.
Very, very cool. I think about this with my brother. He's 19. And I talked to him about this stuff. He already wants to get into real estate. I'm like, dude, if you buy a house, if you do nothing for the next 3 years and buy a house when you're 22 or 23, you're 10 years ahead of every other person who's investing.
Yep.
So it's like, just learn. And if I would have known 5 years earlier, we'd probably be at 30 units by now. So who knows?
It's so hard to tell a younger you this, by the way, because your priorities are just so different and you don't really understand the way the world works. And that's why we're learning. You see it when people, I mean, there's some few that like 24, 23 range we've been seeing, they're absolutely crushing. And that's still premature in a way for me. I'm like, wow, I don't even remember what I was thinking about back then. It's insane. I was
like at $7 an hour back then.
Yeah, dude. Like, yeah. And you want to go out party with your friends and have fun and do your things. And you're like, you don't know how the cost of $1, what it actually goes, how much it actually can pay for. But, I gave my younger brother a book. I'll Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit Sethi. And that book, like I read it now and I already thought I was pretty good with my finances, but it helped me like get everything in order again. I'm like, dude, if I just had this the day I got a job, I'd be set. So I'm like trying to force him to read it. I can't force him to read it, but it's just like, same thing. It's funny. You always go back and I'm thinking of your brother. Like,
yeah, I gave him a Rich Dad Poor Dad and he like reads like a page every 3 days.
He's like, I'm good. I'm going to see the boys. It's like, come on.
Yeah.
And it's a hard thing to like, then you don't get it unless you start living it. You're like, oh man, 5 years in, this job kind of sucks, So depending what you're doing. But it's your side.
That was awesome, Cam. Thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate it. And you got our gears turning, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners are like, trying to figure out their next move because of this conversation. So thank you so much.
Yeah, I would say college rentals. I'm pretty jacked to explore that, and then also Airbnb too. So I hate to say it, we're going to be probably giving you a call. Travis.
For sure. Definitely.
So, I do appreciate it. But for those who love the show and love your story and potentially want to network with you, where can they find you? Maybe if they need a couple pointers on their golf swing. I know maybe I'll probably be hitting you up for some tickets to the tour when you get there. So I'll pay full price, but we might need some family passes, dude.
We'll sneak you in the ropes.
Thanks, man. But how can people find you on social?
Yeah, I'm going to be posting everything on Instagram at Passive Income Golfer. So Passive Income Golfer. It might be a mix of golf content and real estate content, but it'll be mainly real estate focused.
Awesome. Well, we'll send people your way. Dude, this was an excellent interview. Thank you so much for your time. We really value it. You seem like you are obviously in tune with what you're doing, but you're willing to give back too and teach and very transparent. So thanks so much for dropping some wisdom on everyone listening and all of us. We enjoyed it.
Anytime, guys. Thanks.